advice. I don't believe in giving my own personal advice. I give my own personal experience, or I take it back to Scripture, because Scripture's never let me down. But I believe it's in the 22nd chapter of Matthew where Jesus broke down the 10 commandments when the Pharisees and Sadducees were trying to fool him. And he said, the first and greatest command is to love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. And the second, which is much like the first, is to love one another the way you love yourself. And he said, there are no greater commands than these. And then I take that scripture, and when I have a hard time loving, I use two other scriptures that are just beautiful. The one in regards to how can I love the unlovable. Well, 1 John 4:19 says that we can love because God first loved us. And if you can always put things into perspective, that God's love was so great for us that he gave his only begotten Son. While we were at our worst, it says in Romans 8 and Romans 5. He didn't spare his own Son, but he offered him up for us all. And while we were yet still sinners, Christ decided to die for us. So if you can understand how much he loves us, it gives us the understanding of how then we can love the unlovable. And I go back to John 13, verse 34, where Jesus takes that Matthew 22 and he even takes it a little bit further, because we don't always love ourselves. He's, where he said, love your neighbor as you loved yourself. He even broke that down. He said, a new command I give you, and that's you love one another the way I loved you. I'm getting goosebumps right now because this is real. And he goes, so you love one another the way I've loved you, and then all will know you belong to me if you love one another. So we always have to take it back to the love that God has for us. If we understand that it's the word says, freely you have been given, so freely we must give. And that is not just forgiveness, that's also our love. So that kind of helps you love people who aren't being lovable, because we're called, you have an eros love, you have a philea love. Those are loves that are derived from a feeling or an emotion. Yeah. Agape love is the love that Christ calls us to operate in, and that's an unconditional love. That's the unconditional love God had for us. And sometimes that love is an action where we have to push through and love the unlovable when they're not being lovable at that particular moment because of what God did for us.